nice. It was nice. Good morning. Good morning. All right, I want to go ahead and call today's meeting to order at 8 a.m. And moving to 1.2, roll call. Christina will read the Christina will read the language under public content.
In order to help assurance compliance with the Brown Act and in order to make our board meetings more effective and more efficient, trustees will speak only when recognized, and trustees who speak on a topic other than the agenda item currently under consideration will be out of order. Board meeting protocols. The safety and the decorum of the school board meetings are important to Stockton Unified School District and the community. SUSD promotes the public's right to free speech and we want to make sure that all community members, parents, and students are able to participate in a safe environment. We want to ensure all community members have a seat during the board meeting. We will have the maximum number of chairs allowed per fire code, 132. We ask that the members of the public do not stand along the side of the walls or block the walkway. Anyone standing up during a meeting will be asked to take a seat. If they do not comply, they will be asked to leave. An accredited news media representative who is standing will have a press pass credential clearly visible. There is a podium position in front of the first row of chairs. No one other than the person who is speaking may be at the podium except for a guardian, administrator, or translator. For safety, people may not line up behind the speaker to wait their turn. We want to give the person at the podium the time and respect they deserve. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. Attendees are not allowed to enter the area past the podium where the board members are sitting. No profanity or obscenity. During the board meeting, if there is a disruption, the board president or designee will give the verbal warning to the person or persons causing the disruption. If the disruption continues after the verbal warning, the individual will be asked to leave or be removed from the premises for the remainder of the board meeting. After the meeting is concluded, we ask community to clear the lobby area in a respectful manner. Thank you.
1.2, roll call.
President Kenitha Stevens, Vice President Sofia Colon, Clerk Donald Denaire,
Present.
Trustee Angel Ann Flores, Trustee Isabel Perez, Trustee Frank Silva,
Present.
Trustee Shauna Priest. Thank you.
All right, item 1.3, Pledge of Allegiance. Could we all rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Item 1.4, oral suggestions and comments from the community regarding current agenda items only. Yvette will announce the number of public comments and request each person to provide their public comment in the order they were received, and Abby will be the timekeeper.
Thank you, Madam President. There are no comments today under agenda item 1.4. Back to you.
Thank you. Item 2.1, Stockton Unified School Board of Education Workshop, Effective Governance, New Beginnings, facilitated by Mr. Robert Bob Kane, California School Boards Association Consultant, CSBA.
Is that my cue? All right. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Just delighted to be here. A lot going on in our world, in our country, in our state, and it's so important that we take the time to focus on what's really important, and that's the education of all of the students in your district. So thanks for your I know Angel Ann wanted to be here. I had a great conversation with her, and unfortunately, she's not well, but she voiced her interest in really serving out the 2 terms she has remaining as positive as possible in terms of those responsibilities. So was one of, I think all of you mentioned your goal of wanting to work as a team with the superintendent. So that's, you're all off on a great start regarding that. Do I need to get closer, Christina? Okay. Feels like I'm doing a radio show or something. Good Morning Vietnam comes to mind, the movie. Let's see, I also, I want to introduce Chris Norwood. He is our member of the public today. Chris, I'm just going to have you introduce yourself a little bit, but we are colleagues, friends. We are teaching classes together for CSBA called Masters in Governance. And Chris wants to do this kind of work, working with school districts and school boards next year and following. So he's here to observe. Our supervisor has encouraged him not to speak, which will be a huge difficulty for Chris. But, you know, he's now a member of the public, so he knows it's up to him to the level of his participation. So, but Chris, introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Norwood. I am, in addition to being a member of the CSBA team, I am a board member in the Milpitas Unified School District. I'm currently the board president. I have been board president for the last 10 years. Excuse me. I've been board president for the last year. I've been board president 4 times, vice president 3 times, and board clerk 2 times. So I'm excited to be here with you all to listen and learn.
Thank you, Chris. Well, let's, you can open up your folders, and on the left side of your folder, you'll see an agenda for our time together. We are scheduled from 8 till 11, so we will end at 11 o'clock. I'm going to take us through as many activities as possible during that time. It's based on kind of what I hope we'll be able to share with you is maybe the top 75% of what you need to know as a trustee working as a member of a governance team. So that's our goal. The page just behind that is a QR code, and I have, there'll be time at about 10 minutes to 11 for you to just fill out the SurveyMonkey about your perceptions and comments about the session today. So we'll schedule that towards the end. And just in terms of looking at the agenda, you can see the major goals. This workshop is number 2 in a series of 4. In October, I think it was, came over and met with the leadership team, and we kind of laid out a plan to provide orientation for new trustees, effective governance, new beginnings, as well as schedule the superintendent's evaluation. And so session today is number 2. Session 3 will be on March 1st, and at that time, Superintendent Rodriguez will do a self-evaluation, updating all of you on her progress so far on the goals and objectives that have been set. Looking forward then to her evaluation has to be completed according to her contract that you all, the district signed with her, that would be concluded in July. So we'll look forward to coming back together in July and focusing on that process, and we'll talk briefly about what's involved with that before we finish today. Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. So CSBA, it's called California School Boards Association. It's been around for about 75 years. It is the organization for school districts and school boards in California. It's a nonprofit organization. Vernon Billy is the CEO. He's been the CEO for about 15 years. Very a fine leader, and there's the organization's set up so that there are delegates from all over the state that are part of what's called delegate assembly. They make major decisions for CSBA. So it's a opportunity for leadership for school board members around the state to be involved in that. Their board members are president, vice president, so there's an executive committee as well that works with Vernon and Billy. I've got some materials that we'll comment on later. They're on the corner. They're just various programs and trainings that are available if you're interested. So CSBA has maybe 8 different departments. One of them is the trainings department, and that includes all the orientation for new trustees, the ethics training, and it includes Masters in Governance, which is a 5-day course for board members and superintendents. So it's offers a lot of opportunities, as well as what's called governance consultants services. So that's a workshop that we're having today, where CSBA arranged for a consultant to go out into the districts and work with the governance team. And so it's a very different kind of a board meeting, because you get to talk to each other a lot. And so you'll notice I don't have PowerPoint, because I think workshops like this should be conversations, where you're having conversations with each other, getting to know each other better, and really planning how you can be effective. So does that kind of answer your question, Kenitha? Thank you. So if you look at the goals, we have 4 goals today. One is to work on developing an effective governance team. CSBA defines a governance team as the superintendent and all of the board members. You have a challenge in your district, because most of the districts in the state have 5-member boards. And if you can see, with 5 members of a board and the superintendent, that's 6 people. If you drew lines in terms of the one-to-one relationships within a group of 6, there's 15 different one-to-one relationships, which is, when you realize that's a lot. So if there's one relationship that's not very good, it can influence the whole team. With 7-member board and the superintendent, you have 8 total, and it almost doubles the number of one-to-one interactions. It goes to 28. So the challenge for all of you is to continue to have good relationships with each other, as well as with the superintendent. And that's a big task when you just look at 28 different one-to-one relationships. So it highlights the importance of meetings like this. Let me just start, I think we will definitely review the components of effective governance system. I'm going to have Chris help me with that a little bit, even though he's not supposed to. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to identify the key roles of the board and the superintendent, and we're going to look at what are the major decisions you're going to make between now and the beginning of the next school year. So it's a lot on the agenda, but I want this to be interactive too. So we're going to start out actually talking about why we're all here. And so I'm going to start with a story about students, kids. Our family, Shirley's and I, took care of our grandson from 0 to 5 before he went to kindergarten during the day. And so Shirley was a retired preschool teacher and director of 30 years. And so around our house, we had a science center, we had a library, we had an art center, we had a water table outside. And so he had some advantages in our house. But one day he was painting at the easel, and he had blue and yellow, and he was painting along, and he started mixing the colors. And all of a sudden, this beautiful shade of green evolves. And I said, "Christopher, that is really unique." And he says, "Grandpa, I'm starting a new chapter in my life." So 4 years old, and he's giving me quotes. So in a way, anytime you have a new superintendent or new board members, you're writing a new chapter. The last chapter ended. Now you have the opportunity to write your own chapter. So we learn from the past, but we deal with the present and then plan for the best future possible. So I hope this is a good start for this chapter. We're going to I want to say a word about who I am. I'm Bob Kane. If somebody calls me Robert, it's a cold call. and I am delighted to be here. My entire career was in the Kentville School District, which is north of San Rafael, south of San Rafael and north of the Golden Gate Bridge. I loved what I did. I actually started as a crossing guard and after-school sports coach, and became a student teacher and principal, assistant superintendent, and I was superintendent there for 29 years. I always told parents, kindergarten parents, that going from crossing guard to superintendent is a lateral move. And if you really believe that every person in the district has an equal value in terms of what they contribute, there's a lot of truth in that statement. So 25 years ago, CSBA called and said, Bob, would you be willing to be one of the trainers for the new Masters in Governance program? So I helped develop and have been working in that program for years. One of our consultants about 10 years ago found she had cancer and had to retire early, and so all of a sudden there were a number of districts that needed consultants to do workshops. So I started doing a number of those, and I just really love doing it. So as an example, I play golf with some folks and live in a retirement community for part of the year, and I'm missing golf today. And they say, so why are you going to Stockton when you could play golf? And so my title is consultant, but why am I doing this? I just think this is the most important work in the world. There's no better thing to do than to really think about what's best for each and every student in your district. And we have 5.8 million students in California. Huge responsibility when you think about it. And I know you have a number of students in your district. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So I'm here because this is so valuable, and I think our goal is to really help you be as productive as possible and influence student achievement in a positive way. So I'm going to be able to share with you some ideas and concepts that I think will be really helpful for that. So any questions about the agenda? All right. Well, let's start with why you are here. So I would like you to just take a couple minutes, make a couple notes, like maybe 2 or 3 reasons where people say, why are you a member of the governing team? Why your what is you're a board member, but what's behind your wanting to be a trustee? Okay, another minute. Okay, thanks. Okay, let's start with Donald. Lucky you, Donald. You just happen to be first in the row here. So share a little bit why you're a board member.
Good morning, everyone. Oops. So I wrote some reasons down here. The first one being I wanted to help the district move forward after the COVID pandemic shutdowns. I also wanted to protect and support ethnic studies, diversity, equity, inclusion. And I also wanted to increase safety and budget transparency and accountability.
All right. Thank you, Donald. Kenitha.
For me, I'm a mom and an advocate for social justice and high-quality education. For me, it was about ensuring that every student has access to a high-quality education that leads them into a bright future. Supporting education and making sure that our students have what they need. It helps them to be college and career readiness so that they can live out their hopes and dreams for a bright future.
Great. Thanks, Kenitha. Sophia?
I'm not as fast as my staff, so you got. He asked me to do this, so you got. Otherwise, I'm not gonna get it all.
Okay.
Okay, for myself, I just wrote down some, I'll just read exactly what I wrote down.
Just
here,
wait
so-
1 second. We'll later catch up.
Oh,
Okay, I'm ready now.
All right.
okay, supporting database decision-making. Hometown pride. And this is a longer sentence, so Stockton succeeds when the education for children has a strong foundation. So as you're finishing up there, altogether, I feel like I'm here because I'm from Stockton, my family's from Stockton, and I'm also a product of SUSD. So I wanted to, the reason why I stepped up to this seat is because I wanted to make sure that decisions we were making were rooted in some fact, based on data, that there was a strong reason why we're making changes the way we were. And I want to see our overall city succeed.
Great. All right. Shauna.
Priest. It's everybody calls
Trustee
me Priest.
Priest?
Only
Oh,
my
it's
mom
always-
calls me Shauna.
Oh, is that right? Okay, Priest.
One of my main reasons was for our students to be able to see their potential reflected on our school board, being a product of SUSD, being born and raised in the area now that I represent and raise my own family in, was something that was truly important to me, like Cologne said, about our hometown pride. And one of the most important reasons was for me to be able to bring an educator lens to the school board. I felt that was something that we didn't have. So now being able to come from a lens of a teacher and administrator and being able to reflect that back on our district is truly important to me.
Great. Thank you, Priest. Frank.
Thank you, yes. First and foremost, I wanted to be an advocate for the students and a voice and make sure that, you know, positive things get done for the children. I mean, hopefully we can make a positive difference in the schools and our community that surrounds them, our whole city as a whole. And then, of course, the safety of the students. Definitely the safety of the students, because we have way too much stuff going on that shouldn't be.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know the full extent of what's been going on to counter, you know, to do something about it, but I don't know. I'd like to be a part of whatever it is. And just basically right the wrongs that the board has done in the previous years, all the chaos and anarchy that's been going on, so to speak. Get us all unified and, you know, even if we don't all agree on everything, but at least be unified in our decision-making for the school and the kids.
So you don't want to repeat the previous chapter?
Definitely not.
No.
No. Nothing against the, you know, ones that are here still, but,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay, Isabel.
Is my mic on?
Not yet.
Try to get close.
let's go ahead and do this one.
Thank you. That's good, huh? Okay. Well, I was an underserved student, and I had a lot of issues. I was in the foster system and had parents that were drug addicts in and out of prison and things like that, and I had a really hard time in school. And a lot of the school staff and principal and just administrative staff helped me through a lot of my hard times and led me to a successful future. And that is really why I joined the school board, because I had that, and I want to make sure that other underserved students and teachers have the support, services, and resources they need to help students that need the extra push and need the extra help.
Great. Thank you, Isabel. It's a great story. Superintendent Rodriguez, tell us about yours.
Yeah, so I would say, I believe
Mike.
that education is the great equalizer, and so my hope is that we truly impact the lives of students, families, and our community, and that we leave Stockton a better place than when we came.
Great.
You saw it the first time.
Yep. So what we'd like to do is, as she's finishing up, putting up a couple notes for herself, kind of think about the things that were said, and are there kind of some themes that you think, are, have threads that run through everybody's lives? Just anybody want to comment?
One is that we all decided that we wanted to be an advocate both for education, the protection of education, and also to advocate for students.
Okay. Clear advocacy role. Okay, others? Other themes that you see?
I also think there's a theme of collaboration, us willing to work together to kind of come up with best strategies and ideas for our communities.
Mm-hmm. Collaboration, yes.
I see a theme of change.
Big Bird?
Change.
Change.
A theme of change.
Change.
Everybody wants to see a positive change.
Great.
I sense a care and love for the city of Stockton.
Okay. A real care and love for the city of Stockton.
And decisions based on data, not emotion, and personalities.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting in the Chinese language that wisdom is a combination of two concepts, knowledge and heart. And so it's data and how we kind of deal with everything are really important concepts. We'll switch back.
Come back.
All right, any other, it was just great hearing, I interviewed each of you except priests, but very interested in your kind of backgrounds, where you come from, and how you've gotten to where you are at this point. And I think having that, hearing where other people are coming from, I think is really helpful in understanding the people that we're working with. So I hope you found that to be positive. Let's look at, on the right side of your materials, there's a 10-page study on the Iowa Lighthouse Study. So I thought I would read all 10 pages. No, I'm not going to read all 10 pages. I'm going to have you actually flip it over on the back side, and you can read the 10 pages on your own. But I think the Lighthouse Study was a 15-year study, and they decided to look at what are the characteristics of successful school districts. What is consistent from district to district, irrespective of the demographics? And so they looked at systems around the country in several phases. And what they came up with is that there are 5 characteristics that are similar in all of these high-performing districts. And I'll just briefly go over them, and then we're going to discuss them. The first one is you set clear expectations. It's really clear in the district what your priorities are. What's your vision? What's your mission? What are the specific goals that you've decided to work on a district? You can't do everything. When you do everything, you sometimes don't get anything done. So how do you set clear and high expectations, not only for students, staff, and superintendent and school board? So setting clear expectations, very clear, important one. Now, creating conditions for success is the second one. And that means the board says to the superintendent, this is where we want to go. What do you need from us to make that successful? Well, how can we support you to make that successful? Then the superintendent goes to the principals and says to the principals, this is where we want to go. What do you need from me to make you successful as a principal? And the principals ask the teachers, what do you need to be successful? And teachers even ask the students, what a concept, what do you need to be successful? So the system is built on a success model. You constantly find out how can we be successful doing what we're doing. The third characteristic is really tied to the first one, because if you set clear and high expectations and you don't follow through on it, probably nothing happens. So you have to hold the system accountable to the expectations. And so you do that through following through, being really clear about how you're going to determine success indicators that will give you the data necessary to make other decisions in terms of continuous improvement. The fourth one is a little more vague. It's called build collective will. And in that one, it's kind of building a sense that this is not a 10-year plan. We have students in their seats on Monday morning. This is something that we really need to do. And we need to kind of provide some momentum to convey to others that this is something that we really can change. It's possible, and it's within our hands. The fifth characteristic is that the board and superintendent learn together as a team. There's all kinds of opportunities where you're studying a topic, where you're reviewing information, data, you're, for example, attending the annual conference together. You're doing things as a group that really foster a sense of team. And, we found that successful everywhere we go in terms of the teamwork. So the way to think about this is that, let's see, we have two. I'm going to involve, Chris, you want to be involved? I know you are. We need another person. So what I'd like you to do, I'm going to divide these into 4 groups. And so Frank and Isabel, you'll look at setting clear expectations. Priest and Sophia will look at creating conditions for success. Keneith and Donald will look at hold the system accountable. And Michelle and Chris will look at build a collective will. So here's what I want you to do when you're talking about it. See the A, B, C, Ds and all of those? Put a dollar sign next to the ones that cost more money. And then if they don't cost more money, what would it take to implement that? Okay? So take a few minutes, talk to your partner, and talk about what's.
You didn't realize you were going to be interactive.
Take about 5 minutes to
Well,
talk, and then we'll
I mean,
talk
for
about
me,
it together.
Most of these don't necessarily cost money. They take time.
You're
which is
number
a
one.
precious resource, but they're not necessarily money related.
Which one?
None of them. I don't think
So
any of
we're
these
taking-
cost
We're taking
money.
4 and 5.
No, we're just four.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, creating awareness of the need and urgency that's around data experiences. I have a saying, change experiences to change belief to change expectations. So I think this collective will is all around that. And then this is about self-efficacy, right?
So Bob's question was, which one of these costs money?
And if not, what do they take?
Um,
So I said time. Time and connection.
I agree. I would add, for example, today is an investment of both,
Mm.
right? You invested in CSBA company, right, which had a cost,
Mm-hmm.
right, so that everyone could get to know each other in a safe space, right, to build that collective will,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you think about all of these folks not being school district employees, having full-time jobs, how do you get them together and to start thinking about this all together, absolutely all the time. So I agree 100% there. I would continue to add and think about, like, when you do the AEC conference, when you do things together, sometimes maybe even break bread in different situations before the board meetings. You're investing in folks. You know, high quality food makes a difference,
Mhm.
right? When people get
Yeah,
together.
my staff does a good job on that.
Right. So you think about, you know, money. How much are you referring to, right? Are you talking about, you know, $50, $100, $1,000, $10,000, right? So I agree with you 100%. Creating collective will is really about the quality time together. But knowing that we are all Bay Area people, right? And living in the Bay Area is expensive. How do you create a value? How do you connect a value to those things? So I agree with you 100%.
I mean, our time is in essence is money, right?
Yeah, time has a value for sure, right? Right.
Yeah.
A person taught me, they said a long time ago, they said, when people say time is
Another minute or so, and then we'll have
they say
each group report out
you can
on your discussion.
more money, but you can't create time. Time is constant.
It's infinite, yeah.
Right, right. Yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That you can build collective will. That's through high quality time
Mhm.
together
Yeah.
in safe spaces.
Mhm.
That is how you build. You build collective will because in those safe spaces, people have the opportunity to be vulnerable. They can express their feelings, and then wisdom comes from the head and the
Yes.
heart, as was mentioned.
Yeah.
And those heartfelt stories
Uh-huh.
are what allow other board members to like, oh, so that's why they might
Mhm.
do
Right,
things
choose
the way they
things,
do.
yeah.
But
For sure.
I would be very interested to know if each of the board members heard the whys of
Of
the
each
other
other.
board members
Mm.
versus just waiting for their turn
Yeah.
to talk.
Yeah.
Okay, let's come back together. So for each of these, we're thinking about which ones would actually cost more money. And if they don't cost more money, what keeps us from doing those things, if that's something we want to do. So Frank and Isabel, can you share what you've talked about? Yeah. Can you, Frank, I guess Frank gets to report out because he has a microphone that works.
Well, basically, we think that D would probably be the focus on student learning and teaching and improving the teaching as a key strategy. As a key strategy for improving learning, we think that one. I did press the button.
Oh, there. Yeah.
I told him I talk low.
Yeah.
Okay, this is better? Okay,
Go
testing.
ahead. Say that again, Frank, so everybody can hear it.
We chose D, focus on student learning and teaching, to improving the teaching and key strategy for improving.
Great. Would that cost more money?
Well, we think so because, cost for training,
Mhm.
Teachers and the tools that they need to be able to.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to hear that. But they have to hear on the video as well. Oh, my bad. Oh, we're being recorded.
Isabel? We think this will be recorded too.
Okay, we feel that D would cost the most. Is it off? Is it off? Okay. We feel that D would cost the most because we would need to provide the necessary tools for the teachers to be successful in student learning and teaching and relationships. So tools, management tools, resources, support services, anything that the teachers feel they need to be able to accomplish this.
And then you look at the other three, they really don't necessarily cost more money, do they? So
They
that's
could cost. They could cost because we kind of went over everything.
Yeah.
There are costs for those things
Mhm.
if you're really trying to organize that type of system, but
Mhm.
not as much as D.
Okay, great, thank you.
And we were told that we have too many active mics, which is why we have feedback, so if you're not talking, you can turn them off.
Okay. All right, group 2, Priest and Sophia.
All right, so we discussed, we chatted over all of them and we determined that B and F would cost us the most money, in a sense to make sure those things were done correctly and really had some quality. But we also discussed our other ones as far as time, and time itself is money in a sense, being able to juggle different things, but those things are still just as important as those things that we would be spending funds on to
All right.
create.
So it's a combination of mindset kind of changes and also financial costs potentially. Okay, group 3.
President Stephen and I discussed that can y'all hear me? We discussed that A and C have the most costs. The data that we use will be coming from things like safety infrastructure, curriculum, assessments, transportation, etc. And then for C, monitoring the progress will require staff and personnel, so thinking about Dr. Murphy's team with research and data.
All right, very good. Group 4.
So we were building off of what Trustee Priest was saying, which is sometimes the highest commodity is time and not necessarily funds. And how, so for our number 4 for Build Collective Will, it was around high quality time that builds that connection. And sometimes there is a cost because we're bringing in outside support or we're going to a conference or something like that. But really, when you boil down to it, it's how do you create those safe spaces where people are able to make that connection and allocate that time to build that collective will.
Great. Thank you. Excellent reports on all four. So 5 characteristics. One of the key concepts that comes out of the Lighthouse study is the 3 words focused and functional. And so you can see when you think of this as you have to be very focused, clear expectations, you have to hold the system accountable, but also the district is functioning together in terms of its priorities. And so one of the things the Lighthouse study also found is that when the board and the governance team are focused and functional, they model that for the rest of the system. And whether it's staff groups or negotiations or whatever, you're modeling problem solving for the system. And if they see at the top leadership top not focused and dysfunctional, it gives them permission to act that way. Well, the board acts that way. Why can't we? And so you have an impact on the community way beyond probably what you realize in terms of your ability to be model problem solvers. Now, the other concept, and we highlighted it, the other 3 words, is that doesn't mean you're uniform. It means you're unified. So there's a big difference. You all come from different backgrounds and perspectives and why you're here, and you will have different opinions about things. But the most important thing is that you're talking to each other, communicating, problem solving, resolving conflicts that come up, use parliamentary procedure to have majority rule, but the rights of each person to vote, each person to express their opinion, and each person to vote according to how they wish to vote. So focused and functional, unified, not uniform, themes that run through all of these, starting with the Lighthouse study. Before we leave the Lighthouse study, this booklet you can see, I've used it so much the covers are falling off. I guess that's a sign that you're using something. But this is in 2017, CSBA did an exhaustive study of the conditions for student achievement that the school board can influence in the district and what districts need to do. It's online. It's called the School Board Role in Creating Conditions for Student Achievement. It's about 40 pages long. There's 2 full pages on the Lighthouse study itself. So it's something, there's always folks that are interested in educational research. This is a great document, and some boards there's 8 chapters of 4 pages each. Some have taken a chapter a month and just discuss it at the board meeting. So research tells us a lot, and I think the Lighthouse study is an exemplary example of describing the kinds of things that school board should do to positively influence student achievement. Okay, well, we'll turn the page, and you can put the Lighthouse study aside. I encourage you to read the whole thing at some point, but I wanted to really highlight the key characteristics. So now we're going to look at the next page on the right side, and it's the effective governance system. And so this is the one of the 2 best visuals that CSBA has, because it really lays out what we are striving for in terms of being effective and effective governance. And so, I'm going to ask Chris a question here. So we like to use the analogy of an automobile. And so an automobile is made up of a lot of components, right? So steering, braking, transmission, cooling, and they're maybe like 10, 15 components. And what happens if one of those components is not working? Chris, do you have an example of maybe that happening to you?
So driving here this morning, I live in Milpitas. I make it right into Stockton, and then as soon as I make it into Stockton, my red battery light comes on in my car. I open up my manual, and it says on the red battery light, something is wrong with your charging system. Stop driving immediately and call your dealer. So that's what I did. So my car is going to be towed in a little bit back to the other side, but luckily Bob is going to give me a ride back. But that's an example where when the car is not working,
It doesn't work at all.
it doesn't work at all.
Or there, it's, you know, actually, it's a warning light that it may totally dysfunction. It's
Right.
giving you a warning
Yes,
that this is, and it happens to be red.
yes,
Yes, so it gets your attention.
yes.
Yeah, great. So it's a great example because, you know, an automobile, we've all had trouble with one component or another. And so we're looking, now we're going to look at the components of effective governance system. And so there are 7 components. And I'll start on the left side. The rectangle says individual governance mindset. So the first component of effective governance system is individuals being aware of their own effectiveness. And we've, over time, over 25 years, have identified 8 characteristics of an effective trustee, and also could be applied to an effective superintendent. I'm going to go through them quickly. You're very mindful. You're very mindful of who you are and how you operate, and you are aware of your own effectiveness within the group. You're a systems thinker. You realize that Stockton Unified is a huge, complex system, and there's all these parts to it, and to try to understand how this affects this and this affects that, that you build that as a trustee. You don't sometimes just come in and say, oh yeah, I understand that, unless you have other systems that you've been a part of in that role. The next 2 are kind of tied together. Preparation is basically preparing for school board meetings so you're really ready to make decisions as necessary. You know, you're asking questions ahead of time of the superintendent, so if there needs to be more information, that can be available at the meeting. So really preparing well. Now, deep learning means that as in this new chapter of your life, you're going to be learning about some very important topics, and they keep coming at us all the time. There's always a new topic that we have to deal with. But to understand that there's so much behind, whether it's personnel issues or negotiations or student learning and achievement, there's layers to all of this. And so really being committed to that deep learning. And as you know, you get to, I had an opportunity to take 5th and 8th graders back to Washington, D.C. for 18 years. And we actually had a contact and met with Sandra Day O'Connor, who was the justice at the time. And she said, when the kids said, so what's the toughest part of your job? And she said, I'm constantly reading. I read, and I read. And so that's, you know, that's just a part of particular jobs where you just have to have a deep understanding of topics. Now, strategic focus. That really kind of talks about the difference between working hard and working smart. You can't possibly read everything in the world, and so you have to prioritize your time and energy to be strategic about how you do that. And so you apply that to your work as a board member. You realize your manner and who you project in terms of manner has a lot to do with what people know and think about you. And so you probably see in the UCLA study of years ago that 55% of all communication is nonverbal, and 35% is the tone of voice, and 7% are words. So you realize that when you say something, you're conveying a message, a communication message that really is multidimensional. So being aware of that and as they say in the governance core, another way of looking is managing your public manner. I mean, you know, what you do in the confines of your a room in your house, you can probably say almost anything you want, but you just have to really be aware of how you're coming across in the public arena. A commitment. You're all made a commitment. You took an oath of office to dutifully fulfill your responsibilities, and that with that commitment comes time, resources, and energy. Now, confidentiality is a difficult one. I've got another grandson story. So he was outside playing with something, and he drops it, and he says, "Oh, damn." And I said, "Oh, Christopher, you know, that's not a word that we use." I said, "Where did you hear that?" He says, "My dad." And so a week later, something else happens. He goes, "Oh, shoot." And I said, "Christopher, that's not a word that we use. You know, where did you hear that?" He says, "I'm not supposed to tell you." So confidentiality has to do with when people say, "Tell us about X, Y, and Z," and you just have to say, "I'm not supposed to tell you." You know, so, you know, what happens usually in closed sessions is almost totally confidential. And so effective trustees understand the importance of that, and keeping that clear. So those are 8 characteristics of effective trustees. I'm going to skip over to the green rectangle. That's the team governance mindset. And you see we've all been members of teams, and maybe you've been a part of a real successful team. Good teams know their roles and responsibilities, but there's a unity of purpose to it. And this is a really important concept, because if you develop a unity of purpose within your team, it creates its own energy. And so, again, the famous consultants, Davis Campbell and Michael Fullen, they introduced the concept that it's a moral imperative that we do this. You have a choice to be dysfunctional and not do what's best for kids, and that's happening places. But they say, no, you don't have a choice. You have the moral imperative is to work together, because you're not arguing about how to build another Lego toy. You're dealing with a kid's education and their futures. And so I'm very strong that the importance of that kind of approach to teamwork. Again, unified, but not uniform. Those next 3 are principles, norms, and protocols. Are all part of how we treat each other. The principles are, you know, transparency, good decision-making, deliberation. Norms are how we treat each other, we respect each other, we build trust. And last, protocols are how we work together. And we'll talk a little about that when we just highlight some of the things that are in your draft governance handbook. So that's the team. And there's a board member from San Rafael. He played professional football, and he was a defensive back. And he was taking one of our classes, and he said, "Well, I have an example to share about that." He said, "As a defensive back, I know what my role is and my responsibility. If I try to do somebody else's job on the defense falls apart." And so understanding your role and responsibility as a team member is important, because you can't do somebody else's job. Each 7 of you have a vote, and you will exercise your vote as superintendent, your superintendent. So just to remember the importance of that. So how do we go from the individual to the team? And we call that the transition to collaborative partnerships. And that somehow we don't leave ourselves behind. We come with our issues and interests and all, but we commit to be a member of a team. What's involved with that? And there are different ways that we phrase that. One is it's a transition from campaigning to governing. when you're running for election, it's all about, this is what I'm going to do when I get, we're gonna work on this and this and this. But all of a sudden, you take the oath and now you're no longer a candidate. Now you're a governing team member. So making that transition is sometimes a hard transition. And another way that we like to say it is it's going from I to we without losing me. So you're making a commitment to have these relationships, remember the one-to-one relationships, to maintain those are part of the team development. So now we'll just look quickly at the purple one. So you go to the grocery store, Donald goes to the grocery store and somebody says, okay, Donald, you're on the board now, you've been on for a couple years. So what are our what are your responsibilities? And he says, I know what they are. What are they, Donald? What are the 5 responsibilities? Go ahead.
Set the direction, strategic goals, establish the structure, creative supportive environment, ensure accountability, demonstrate community leadership.
All right. So you have those 5 fundamental responsibilities in all of these district functions. Frank, what are these district functions? We'll read those off for us with the mic right up there.
I would be setting the district's direction, student achievement, finance, facilities, human resources, policy, judicial review, collective bargaining, community relations, and advocacy.
All right, that's a lot of responsibilities. Ooh. You know how to really accent something when you do it. Okay, great, thank you. So all of those areas, that's amazing. That's a big, that's boards have responsibilities in all of those areas in terms of setting direction, establishing structure. Now look at the bottom line here. Current trends and issues in public education. There's just a few of those, aren't there? You think of all the things that you deal with, you read about in other school districts. It's new legislation, it's new direction, it's federal, it's state, it's local. And so how do you can see the arrows going up. They inform everything that we do. Now, last but not least, is this last component on the right side, success for each and every student. That used to say success for all students. And we had some feedback from trustees saying, that kind of sounds too general. Can you be more specific? And so the suggestion was our primary goal should be success for each and every student. It's kind of our North Star. It's if you're doing all of these other components and that's not the focus, you're probably wasting your time. So as an example, do any of you have more than 2 children? More than 2 children? How many children do you have, Sophia? 5, okay. 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 Do you know Sophia didn't say, oh, I have about 5? She said, I have five kids. So does anybody know how many kids are in the Stockton Unified School District? Pretty close. The number that Christina gave me is 35,144. It's pretty close.
President Stevens is right, that we've had declining enrollments and stuff,
Okay. So the point we make is that when you say, if you really believe in success for each and every student, shouldn't you know the number of kids in your district? And it's a message sent. And so, I think when people say, well, we have about 34,000, and of course, that's success for all students. If you really believe it's success for each and every student, then it's 34,106. And so I think it's sometimes the language we use also sends a message in terms of that commitment. So 7 components. I'm going to ask you to see 1, 2, 3, 4, That's great. So I'm going to give each of you a component. You have individual governance mindset, Isabel. Frank, transition and collaborative partnerships. Priest, team governance mindset. Sophia, fulfilling responsibilities. Kenitha, district functions. Donald, success for each and every student. And Michelle, you have current trends and issues in public education. So what I want you to do is just make a case, give you a couple minutes, of why the component I gave you is the most important of all of them, okay? Why is that component, when you think about the whole system and it's integrated, why is the component I assigned you the most important? Just maybe give a reason. But I'll just give you a minute to think about it, and then we'll hear back from everybody.
Why is it important?
Oh, we gotta say five. I thought you said which one was the most important.
So you're.
That's why this is pretty good.
Why is it the most important?
It's just
Oh, our
shows
Your
the number of
area,
kids, staff.
No, not your area,
Other
but
facts
what he chose you to do. So this is mine.
What,
I think he gave you this
when did you
one.
get your car? Are they gonna
They
pay
gave us this one, they gave them.
Yeah,
This
okay.
one. We're back, we still are, we were both
Oh,
right
ours
here.
is this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So which one do you think is most?
Yeah, I'd say commitment.
Okay, let's just hear
It's the
your
whole
comments.
component.
So just your thought on maybe one of the reasons why the component I assigned you is maybe the most important. Okay? You're first, Isabel. So which one did we give you?
You gave me individual governance mindset. I feel that this area is the most important because it is a commitment within yourself, and this is an image that you have to carry throughout your time of this position. So in order to be able to serve those around us, we have to understand our role as an individual, and if we are able to provide what the ask is successfully and in unity.
Great. Very good. So, pretty important having an individual aware of their commitments and how they operate.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Great. Frank, why is the second component important?
Oh, the team governance mindset?
The transition to collaborative partnerships.
Oh. I think it's very important that we all collaborate and be on this, be unified, and especially with the decision-making that we have, it just has to be, you have to be able to be open and to be able to, not everybody's gonna agree on everything, but just to be open to if the way you feel isn't the one that was chosen or voted, not everybody voted for the way you wanted it to be, but, you have to be able to adapt and, look at the big picture for what we're trying to do.
And willing to be a team member.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Because there's no I in team.
Yeah, all right, good. Thanks, Frank. Priest, how about the third component? Important one?
Yes, I had team governance mindset, so really being able to understand, our roles and responsibilities within our team, really bringing our different backgrounds and perspectives, but knowing that we're here for a bigger purpose. really being able to work together. I think Frank had mentioned earlier today, we may not always agree, but still keeping that main purpose in mind. And one of the main things I took away from this was just that positive governance, keeping that positive mindset when we go into discussions and collaborations, and really understanding that we are here for positive change.
Okay, great. Good teamwork. Alrighty, Sophia, fulfilling your responsibilities.
Okay, so I feel my area is most important, fulfilling responsibilities, because it tells one what they ought to do. So it's, of all of these, it's telling us exactly what we should be doing: establish the structure, create supportive environment. So these are action words. I feel if we don't have the clear outline of what we are responsible for, then the rest don't know what they should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
So I have district functions, which I classify as the systems of the district, but it includes all of the others that comes before it, right? So when we talk about the function of the district, you can't get there without having an individual mindset, transition to collaborative partnerships, governance, fulfilling the responsibilities. So I think this one, it includes every single one leading up to this one to get the job done.
Okay, very good. So it's the kind of the work that needs to be done, the topics. Okay, Donald, well, let's see, I'm gonna let you go last.
Okay.
Michelle, why don't you go next?
Certainly. So I believe mine is most important because a system needs to pivot, evolve, and change based on what's happening so that the system and we continue to provide things that are relevant and meaningful to all the people which are within the educational system.
Right, so being aware and responding as necessary. That's great. Donald, did you get an important one?
What's that?
Did you get an important
I
component?
did. On the chart, I think it's the most important because all the arrows point to it. But aside from that, everything we do and how the board functions, how the district functions internally should lead to the success of all students. And so just thinking about the different scales that we have on this chart, the individual self, the board, the district, and that should emanate outward towards the Stockton community. And to end off, I wanted to quote the great Miss Lauren Hill, "How are we going to win if we're not right within?"
Uh-huh. Well, great. So success for each and every student, North Star primary, it's the best description in terms of, I think, we're talking about what we want to have happen in the system. And if we really are serious about that, then we're aware about the equal opportunities that people have. We're aware that if students need specific services, we're trying to match the services with the needs, and reach and it's a huge task, but I think the focus is a really good one and appropriate one for effective governance. So it's 9, 10, 20, 23. So let's take a 10-minute break, move around, and then at 9:35 we'll come back. We're right on schedule. So thanks for all your participation so far.
9:35.
10-minute break.
Mic check. Testing, testing, mic check. Mic check, mic check. Microphone check, mic check, mic check. ABC, 1, 2, 3, 24, 25. Yeah, you gotta press hard. Mic check, mic check. Microphone check, 1, 2, 3. No, it's on. Microphone check, 1, 2, 3, ABC, 23, 24, 25, 26. Kool-Aid, no sugar. Check, check. Talking, hearing, seeing, speaking, smelling, tasting. All right. Okay, so she needs to pull this mic to here. Don't, not here. She needs to be right here with the mic, with it on. There's the mic's on. Back here, can't hear nothing. Right here. And we are talking now. Yeah. Now, when you're not talking, go ahead and push it back. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Same thing for a board member here. He just pulled it up to his, because he's soft spoken. He definitely needs to pull right up to close to his mouth and try to talk, project his voice a little more. What the heck is like? This was for president. We can actually hear you.
This one? This one? Mic test? Mic test? Yeah, you gotta be within 3 inches. That's good. Yeah.
respectful conversation with her.
I suppose I actually didn't want to run until like much later down the line, but because of kind of other people showing up, it's like
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's a good point, yeah. Oh. Oh, I have not. I thought that you didn't have this piece and that you only have this piece. You know what I mean? Don't worry, I just thought you only had the front piece. I was like, no, it's right there.
Test, test. Yeah, test, test, test. Is that too far still? Test.
Test it.
Oh, yours is way louder than mine.
Test it again. Okay, that's plenty.
Okay. Yeah? It is, huh? But I have a loud voice. What? It sounds okay? Yeah? Just talk louder. Okay. Outside voice.
Okay, let's come back together, and we're right on schedule, so we're moving along great. The next visual is in your notebook is the Venn diagram, which is one of the top two available from CSBA in terms of providing a visual that's a great teaching tool. So take a look at that for a minute. And take a look at that, and the question is, what do you think we're trying to teach here with this diagram? Just think about it for a little bit and maybe make a couple of notes. What are we trying to teach with this? Okay, let's just kind of work our way around the room here. Isabel, what's something that you think we're trying to teach here with this diagram? What would you guess?
I guess I guess it's an overall view of the governance team and their role, and then administrative staff, teachers, and their role, and how we come together in the middle.
All right, so delineation of responsibilities between the board, the superintendent, and staff.
In better words, yes.
No, you did very well. Frank, what do you take away from this?
I felt like it was like unification amongst everything all together, working together for one common goal.
So it describes how you can work together.
Or how they all go together and work together and how it should be.
Great. Okay. Priest, what do you see in this?
Just showing us kind of the middle ground and kind of how we can get there. And as one of them say, just how we can be successful by bringing both lenses together, the meet in the middle.
And meeting in the middle, what are the two things we're focused on there in the middle?
Our strategic goals and success indicators.
All right, very good. Sophia, what do you take away from this?
I'm really encouraged by the interpretations already so far. I don't have much to add. Just that I agree. Our roles, how they work together and come together for the middle ground.
All right. So there's a couple of things we haven't mentioned yet, but Kanitha, what would you add to that?
So I would just add that we are the what when we talk about what's happening in our roles. We are the what, the superintendent and her team, they are the how. So we set the tone for what's going to happen, and then they go out and they make it happen, and then we look at those success. I think Trustee Perez said it best, like meshing the two together, because there's this overlap of what's happening. How do we meet those goals together? But they are the actionary piece of what moves the district forward, not us in our roles.
Very well said. The what and the how. Donald, I'm sure you can come up with something here.
Okay, I missed some other folks' answers, but for me, the analogy that's coming up is bringing up the question, where's my lane as a board member? Where's the lane of staff, teachers, school site? And where do those lanes merge into each other? And then thinking about two words, direction versus action. Who sets direction? Who does the actions of the direction?
Okay, very, very good. Michelle, what's your take on this?
So, piggybacking on the story of your grandson and the colors, right? So, you can only get to the green if you are working together to get to that point, right? So, when you blend the yellow of the belief, vision, mission, policies, and then you blend the actions of administration, staff, and I would even say community, then that is when we can get to the true goal, which is the middle, and the green, which is the strategic goal and ultimate student success.
Great. Well, that's it. Well, thanks for picking up on the story. So it is a blending. The Venn diagram, came out of mathematics actually, and it started as a way of describing attributes with numbers. But it has a lot of great application, and this is a great application of it. And so you clearly have covered kind of the main components. Just to focus a little bit on strategic goals and success indicators, why does the board need to be involved in the strategic goals, setting the strategic goals? Donald, why does the board have to be a part of that?
Because the community elected us and chose us to represent them.
That's right. And so that yellow part does include the community. You're representing your area, but you're also representing all of the students in the district. And your role is to be clear about the beliefs of the community, the vision for students, the mission for the district, the policies for the district, and priorities. Those are your primary responsibilities as it relates to kind of the value-driven part of it. Now, it says that governance team with the arrow, the superintendent actually lives in the blended green area for a number of reasons. One, working with you to develop the strategic goals and coming and then working with the staff to come up with success indicators. So if the board's not involved in that, they're not fulfilling their responsibility. Remember the Lighthouse study, to set clear and high expectations. You do that through goals and strategic goals. Why should the staff be a part of that? That's the overlap for the staff too. If the Kanitha, you want to try that one? Yeah.
So they're the doers, right? So they are the actionary piece to the strategic goals. We talk about the goals as what we want to see happen for the district. Align that with policy, right? Policy and money to make those things happen. And then her team says, guess what? We can do this thing. Or they'll come to her and say, guess what? That's a heavy lift. And maybe that's a 3-year plan and it's not a 2015, 2016 plan. So they're the doers. They know the data because they work with the people that will go out and do the work that will ultimately support the kiddos.
And the staff knows how to measure
Yeah.
success. And if staff's not involved in that, it's they sit on the shelf, the strategic goals sit on the shelf and don't get implemented. So this is a great diagram in terms of, it's maybe an oversimplification a little bit, but it's really helpful. So as new trustees, you may be familiar with the local control accountability plan, which was funded in 2013, I think it was, for the local control funding formula. So it changed the way funding was set up for California. And so there's a base grant that all the districts get, and then districts get additional funds for having certain categories of kids that need additional funding to meet their needs. So in a nutshell, so the state, there's a couple of reasons why they did this. One is they were aware that across the state of California, there were a lot of districts that did not have an accountability plan. They weren't being clear about where the district should go and didn't involve staff in this, and everybody just kind of kept going. The state said, no, everyone will have an accountability plan. We're going to call it the Local Control Accountability Plan. And so LCAP then is the short version of that, but that's a very important document because that's the state is saying, you want local control, then you decide what are the areas, we're going to tell you the areas you should focus on, but you decide how you're going to do it, what objectives you're going to set, what action plan you're going to follow. And therefore you end up with an LCAP, which is a big document, but it represents the accountability plan for Stockton. So do you see how that LCAP is really, what the state was saying is implement this diagram for accountability. The board has a responsibility and the superintendent to collect public input. The goals are set and the action plan is finalized and the 3-year plan is developed by staff primarily deciding how it's going to be carried out in terms of action plans, implementation, evaluate the programs, and do progress reports. So is that helpful in terms of kind of understanding what LCAP is? Another way of looking at this is that it's also a way of looking at superintendent's evaluation. As you know, board has a responsibility to evaluate the superintendent every year, and the board and superintendent agree on the format and they agree on the goals and success indicators, and then the superintendent plans to meet those and then provides a mid-year report and an end-of-the-year report in terms of success meeting those goals. So in a way, the school boards need to really recognize that that green area is an important point of leverage for boards because you're getting to be a part of setting the direction clearly and you're going to know that the accountability is built in. Remember the Lighthouse study, set clear expectations but hold the system accountable. So the LCAP is intended to do that. Now whether it's been successful in every district, that's a whole nother topic. But if you're really doing this right, this really should should drive the direction of the district. Michelle, would you kind of comment about the value of an LCAP and what you have here? And I know you've set a lot of objectives around a whole nother
Yeah,
topics.
sure. So I think you are right. I think some school districts prior had strategic plans and some didn't. Some superintendents do still choose to have a strategic plan apart from the LCAP. I have always pushed against that because of the amount of work that we do to get feedback around the LCAP. Especially here, I think this year in particular, but even last year, we have had pretty much 2 meetings a month with the LCAP. This year we're doing something really different, and we're doing data dives with our parents, and I think it's been really helpful to really, because it's a thick document, so just the summary portion, even the summary portion for most parents probably isn't comprehensible. And so we developed an infographic, and I think if you've gone to some of them, I can put it in our weekly communication so that board can see it again. But we developed an infographic because, you know, we know that some of our families are not going to even read the 30-page summary. But what we've done this year is really break it down and look at different data points and how those data points and goals are linked to specific sub-goals. And then board-wise, what we do, and Dr. Murphy always does a really good job of trying to link them, is then we link those required 7 goals through the state, and we have developed KPIs, so key performance indicators, that then link to it, so that we're not just doing the end result and looking at the end result, but every month or about 6 weeks, we're looking at our key performance indicators, and we do that with our parents. And then, so for example, I just did chronic absenteeism with all the PACs, which is the parent advisory committees. And we just did chronic absenteeism with the board this last board meeting. So we try to do those KPIs so that we're keeping a constant look on it. Again, the goal is for us to pivot and shift. So just like Ryan Hesse, for example, just talked about how well we are doing, or we were doing currently as of January on chronic absenteeism, but what we know these last 2 weeks, because of some of the things that have been happening with immigration and others, that our attendance has once again gone down, and it was reflective in what was presented to the board in the January data. When they looked at it, they were like, ooh, what happened? And so again, that's going back to knowing what our overall goals are, and then really monitoring it both at the leadership level, which for us is 240 people or so. That's every administrator in the district, and then expanded cabinet, which is about 130 of us. So that's all district administration. And then obviously bringing it to board as well to make sure that we're all keeping a pulse on what's happening and pivot quicker than if we are only looking at it yearly or every 6 months, right? So how quickly can we pivot? Tiffany Ashworth is our director of LCAP, and she does a really wonderful job of continuing that work. What I'm proud of is she's doing an amazing job, but we also have a lot of other departments that are involved in those meetings too. So Dr. Murphy, for example, is there or has a staff member there. And after each LCAP, we actually look at trends and comments and information that we actually learned off of that LCAP meeting. So for each LCAP meeting we're looking at trends just within that. So what are our families saying off of the data that we just looked at, or what are our families saying off of the goals that we just have? And then we obviously do a lot of surveys as well. So I think Stockton is doing a really amazing job of reaching out. I still want more families there. We still want more families there. It's much more than it was last year, but I still think that we need to continue to figure out how to get it at the school level a little bit more, so that, and some do it, but at the school level, So, because some families are not going to come to the district level, they'll only go to the site level. And so, how do we help all of our principals and and maintain expectations for how they need to engage with staff? We have to evolve over time. And so, we've set some expectations. We'll keep ratcheting up as we go along. But yeah, I'll finish with that.
Yeah, very good. Any questions the board has about kind of the whole LCAP process, or if not?
Question, oh, sorry. No question, but just as you were talking, I was thinking like maybe even outside of our PACs, creating LCAP leadership teams at the school site level so we can really drive what it looks like to have families involved at the local level, but then also having them connect around the larger piece to support Tiffany with more of that community engagement for the LCAP. Because the community piece is what really drove this piece, is to make sure that there was local autonomy for families to have a say, not just with the funding, but also with what the plan looks like for their kiddos when they go to school, and what are the achievement goals, and how do students engage back at the school site level. So it is extremely important that we have parents at the table, and that parents that look just like you and I to say these are the things that we want to move forward, and then to also just continue to build that relationship with families and the district across the board.
For sure, and we definitely will leverage the community schools work. So we just, the board just approved the job description for the brand new family liaisons that are going to be at the school sites through the community schools funding. And so that can definitely be one of the groups that they form as we're doing our community schools work. We have 27 schools of the 55 that are community schools right now. And then it may now change, but they were going to do another cohort for community schools for California. And so hopefully they will continue to have that as a funded element, and we're planning on having all the rest of our 55 schools go after that. So we would have it across the board, so we can definitely have that work. Sure. So we have 27 right now that got approved this last year. And so currently we have 27, and so we'll hope to extend to the 55.
Chris, do you have a comment?
I'd ask the superintendent to talk about the SIPSA, the school site plans, and how they roll into, because that's another approach.
Yeah, thank you.
Explain the acronym and then.
Sure, yeah. So SIPSA is the Single Plan for Student Achievement. So that is the individual site version of what the district has to do. And so you may have heard from some principals of some frustration because we actually made them redo their SIPSAs. So as required by law, they did their SIPSAs and had it approved by their school site council in May or April of last year. But as you all, some of you know, maybe all know, we changed our LCAP goals pretty significantly this year. So each school district in the state of California did a brand new 3-year plan for the LCAP. I wasn't from some of the listening sessions that I had. I wasn't necessarily sure if the goals always met what families were asking for, and so again, Tiffany and her team did a great job of getting feedback from people, and we reorganized our 6 LCAP goals. So what happened, for example, and there was some concerns off of AAB PAC that each individual school site, for example, didn't have goals explicitly linked to Goal 6, which is African American student thrives. And so what each and every school district, or each and every site had to do is take the brand new 6 goals, because we kept some consistent, but we changed some and then we added some. And they had to then draw a link, an explicit link between each one of those 6 goals and their single plan for student achievement, their SIPSAs. And so it was an effort. And because we had made such a big shift on the LCAP goals, it was a pretty big shift for them. So they had to realign all of their funding. So they too do goals and actions, and then they align their individual funding that they receive to those. And so now, if you look at the SIPSAs and the question is asked, so where is English learners in there? You can draw a through line. Where is African American Black student achievement? There's a through line. So there is actually a through line now at each one with each one of the SIPSAs. These upcoming years, because it's a refresh instead of a whole renewal of the LCAP, next year will be easier for the principals. This year was a pretty big shift. They pretty much had to redo their entire SIPSA. But I believe in the end, it will help us both track, are we using our money where we say our goals are? And then also it will help us ensure that each site is actually tracking the 6 goals that we've set out for the district. So thanks for the question.
Great. Other questions about LCAP? Isabel, could you do me a favor and just bring these around with everybody? So we're going to shift gears. And so remember, Sophia reviewed all the responsibilities, 5 responsibilities, and Kanitha reviewed the district functions and within the work areas. And so how in the world can we keep track of all of this? And CSBA has a tool that we're going to just show you as a template. Some districts have used a similar format. Some districts have a different version. So it's not, there's more than one way to kind of manage the numbers. But just a quick overview in terms of what the calendar is. You can see across the top of the calendar are the months of the year, corresponding to kind of the school district calendar, July 1 to June 30. Then you see different job areas or district functions down the left side. Effective governance, setting direction, student learning achievement, and then finance. Then if you flip it over to the other side, finance continues, and then facilities line, policy, judicial review, human resources, collective bargaining, community relations, and advocacy. So it's a big chart. So I thought I'm gonna, I think what we should do is focus on maybe some of the key decisions or most critical decisions to make in the coming year. And so I'm gonna give you Bob's top 11 decisions based on my experience. What are the ones for sure that are maybe more important than the others? You'll note that some of the bold ones are mandated, but I'll start on with effective governance. We're going to start where it says effective governance at the top on the first line. Yep. It says, yeah, page 15 on it. You probably wondered what happened to page 14. So on page 15, for effective governance, some things are repeated there, but I would highlight in April and May, conduct board self-evaluation and develop action plan for improvement. Something that CSBA recommends is that you do a board self-evaluation once a year. Your bylaws probably prescribe that. And so that's something that is recommended for a couple reasons. One is you're modeling accountability for the system. You know, we expect the superintendent to do a self-evaluation as part of her evaluation. We have principals and teachers and students. We all want them to be evaluating their own performance and therefore improving the way they operate. And so They don't recommend that you do a board self-evaluation until board members have been on the board at least 6 months, because you just don't have enough experience at that point to actually complete the evaluation process. But CSBA provides a process if there's interest. So setting direction, on my top 11 is in March and April, every 2-3 years, review the district vision, mission, using an inclusive process. So CSBA recommends that when you do have new trustees or new superintendent, that you look at your vision statement and mission statement. And so and it doesn't mean that you have to change it. It just means that there should be complete support by the governance team for that. To the degree that you involve the community, staff is a individual decision. But a vision and mission the language shouldn't be negotiated. It shouldn't be, well, I'm not it should really be the words that the board and the superintendent feel are giving the best direction to the district. So under student learning achievement, my number 3 is approve the LCAP way over in June. But it's interesting when you see all of it, and Michelle did a great job describing the process that these evolve, and the reports on how students are doing, as well as you're collecting information for the next year. So I put LCAP as my number 3. Dropping down over on student learning, aligning the district vision and student learning and achievement goals. So again, that's what you do with LCAP. You're constantly, and I use the word pivot, I think, and based on new information, you make adjustments. So to make sure that again, a la the Lighthouse study, setting clear expectations, hold the system accountable, there's a conscientious effort to make sure those are aligned. I put the next one, and it's not an action, it's an action if you schedule them, but I put scheduling presentations and board progress reports regarding student results, local assessments, curriculum implementation, and professional development. There's another study that was done by a national group that decided that high-performing districts spent a certain amount of time on finance and a certain amount of time on student learning and achievement. Low-performing districts spent much different percentages. Low-performing districts spent 60% on finance, 10% on student learning. High-performing districts, it was the reverse, 60% on topics relative to student achievement and 10% on finance. And we haven't gotten to the finance part. That's an important part. But the temptation is sometimes to spend all the time on the dollars and cents and not on these other issues relating to students. So the survey really they did a minute count on all the agendas, and it was amazing, because one of the things that you're modeling with your board meetings is what's important. And so just something to remember as you're planning your agendas. So we're up to 1, 2, 3, 4. So my next 3 have all to do with finance. And so when you're thinking about, particularly as new trustees, what are these decisions? And you found out right away at your first meeting that you received the audit. So I circled that one, receiving the audit, because that's the analysis of last year's budget. Now remember, the board hires the independent auditor. So the independent auditor reports directly to the board. When the auditor reports to the board, they're saying, this is what we found. And so that is very important information. Now you can see my next one is adopt the budget in June. But you can see all the things that happen in the course of the district in the year that get you to the budget adoption. So now if you'll flip over to the other side, and of course there's 2 sides to everything. In December, approving and certifying the first interim report. So what we have to realize why a calendar like this is important is that you've got 3 years running at one time. Almost every program, you're reviewing last year's program, you're operating this year's program, and you're planning for the next year and the future all at the same time. Well, how do you keep track of that in terms of your responsibilities? And you can see that first interim report, why that's so important, because that's the staff's, well, okay, we've through the first three months of the year, I think it goes to October 1. First interim covers through October 31st. So that's the staff's perception about how well are we doing what we thought we were going to do in terms of the budget, but also tied to that is a multi-year projection. So remember, the audit is from last year, first interim report is monitoring this year, and you're doing a multi-year projection to see how well you're going to be doing in 2 to 3 years. I don't have to overemphasize probably the importance of paying attention to the finances. You're very fortunate, from what I understand, you have healthy reserves, and for some districts, that is not the case. And if there are some changes in funding in the next couple of years, and some districts already in difficulty. Inglewood is an example of a district, I think it was about 10 years ago, because I was down there for a couple of years, but they didn't have enough money, and when the district goes bankrupt, the state takes over. So the superintendent loses his or her job, the business manager loses his or her job, and the board no longer makes decisions for the district. It becomes an advisory group. And so, that situation stays the same until you pay back the money the state gave you to bail you out. So how do you possibly pay back a loan and operate your program? It's a never-ending kind of a process. So it's very hard. So the importance of knowing the numbers, and you don't have to be an expert in finance, but as a group to be conscious about really paying attention to the reports that come in. We used to laugh about the fact that if you wanted the boardroom to clear out, have the auditor come in and start going through the numbers. Because auditors, that's what they do, is just numbers. They're not there to entertain people. They're there to really lay out what the numbers are. So something like this allows you to see decisions that are coming up, and so you can be prepared. So I'm going to hop down to human resources, that March 15th date. For those who've been on the board, know that's extremely important. Layoff notification to staff, not only for layoffs, but non-election letters are letters sent to staff members in their first 2 years saying that we do not want you to return. If you don't receive one of those letters in your third year, you usually become tenured, which is very difficult to deal with tenured teachers that are not doing well. So that data is very important for the district, and it will certainly be discussed in closed session. Then I also circled evaluate the superintendent in May, June. That's done at different times. The agreement with Michelle is that she would like to be able to use the data from this year as part of her evaluation, so that will really be accomplished in July. Some districts do it earlier, and then they just deal with the information flow differently. But that's you're committed to evaluate the superintendent. We're going to just chat about that a little bit before we break up for today. Now, in collective bargaining, the way on the far right there, it says under May, June, approved negotiated contracts. That whole process is so important. And I'm going to ask Michelle to make some comments about a number of these things, but nothing will influence the climate in your district more than negotiations in terms of positive or negative. So while that's a little kind of thin line across there, that is so important in terms of your being aware of the process and helping to maintain a real positive culture around that. So I'm going to come back to you, Michelle, in just 1 second. My number 11 under advocacy, I put advocate for each and every student year around. That's in the bottom there. And so, Michelle, I'd love to have you comment on some of the decisions and timing and everything, particularly negotiations. But and then we'll talk more about this. So go ahead.
Sure. So we were behind on negotiations prior. So we're unique in that we have 9 unions. So we have 9 unions. We have one that is so we have 2 that are our largest. So we have STA, which is our certificated staff. And so that's about 1,300 staff members. We have over 5,000 staff members in our district. The next largest is CSEA. Normally, in most school districts, they're bundled together, but for us, we have 3 CSEA units. So we have CSEA 821. That is the majority of our classified staff, so over 1,000 staff members. And then we have CSEA 318. 318 is our paraprofessionals. And I know after people watching this, they're going to say you didn't include me, so I'm doing broad strokes. So I know who's in each bargaining unit. But and then 885 is our transportation. Then we do have, we're unique in that we have a separate for our SPPA. So that's all of our counselors, speech and language pathologists, school psychologists. We have our Police Officers Association has their own union. We have our own union for our mental health clinicians. And we have our own union for our principals and assistant principals. So site administration has that as well. So our goal, so we were able to, we settled with 8 of them. We settled with 8 of them for for the 23-24 school year and the 24-25 school year. For CSEA 318, because of when their contract ended, they selected only to settle for the 23-24, and we're almost solidified with the 24-25 right now. We just, as you saw, we just sunshined at the last board meeting. So how it works is they sunshine their items to say what they want to speak to. Then following that, we are unique here in that we don't sunshine and approve at the same time. It's in the contract that it's 2 separate meetings, which is unique. Normally you sunshine and approve at the same meeting. My understanding is it was put in the contract that way so that people had ample time to understand what was going to be negotiated. And so that was sunshine on their part and then approved. We will do the same process. So pretty much everywhere you allow the bargaining unit to sunshine first, identify what they want to discuss. In the contract, it identifies, unless it's a full opener, meaning you're doing the full contract, as we did with STA this past year, then you are limited the number of articles that you can open. And so what they do is they identify their priorities and which articles they want to open. We then will then identify what articles that we wish to open. Sometimes it will be redundant, meaning we will say we want to do the same article. Most of the time that's not the case. So if they open an article, then that means that it's up for full discussion. We are trying to settle before the end of the school year for the upcoming school year. So we're technically ahead at this point, which I guess it is unique. That hasn't happened. And so we're trying to keep that trend and be ahead of ourselves instead of talking about past years and then worrying about retros and all that. And so our goal is we always generally. Most school districts wait until the governor's proposal, which just came out in January. So you wait until the governor's proposal, which can change by the May revise, but you wait until the governor's proposal so you have at least a backdrop of what monies are going to be available. And so the goal is to then settle. Last year, it came to you in April, May, and so that's when we hope to settle by. And then we always try to, as I say to all staff, we always try to provide the best compensation package that we possibly can. There is really no reason to not provide the best compensation package that you fiscally can. However, we always do have to be fiscally conservative because of downturns. We are declining enrollment as well. However, the board does have 2 resolutions, as they're aware. There's 2 resolutions. So we have a resolution that has $56 million that's set aside to account for declining enrollment and also increasing medical benefits, because that is something that we did this past year. We gave every full-time employee in Stockton Unified has access to free family benefits for their entire family through Kaiser. If they wish to, they can pay up and they can have a different setting. But that is something that we do often here talk about total compensation, because we believe that the health of our employees and their families is important. And so that is part of our compensation package. And then we look at the salary schedule to try to put as much as possible on there and still maintain positive certification through for the 3 years out, right? And so hopefully we do, we have now Sunshine. We'll bring our Sunshine forward, and then we will start negotiations, and hopefully we'll be able to come to a conclusion, because as we saw previously, when we were in difficult negotiation times, there was some stress on the relationship, and so we always try to work with our unions as best as we can so that we provide our staff the best possible, so they can provide our students the best possible.
Great summary. So one of the purposes, remember our effective governance system, and we have, so what a board planning calendar, something like this, does is it allows you to know you're fulfilling your 5 responsibilities and all of those district functions. You're aware of current trends and issues, because as an issue comes up, you can say, can we have a workshop on X? And you look at your calendar and you say, well, it looks like the timing would be great for March or whatever. So and obviously the whole focus is success for each and every student. So as you know, while it might not be on a student line, these are all they're all integrated with each other, and so they're a dependent. You don't start a new program for students without building that into the budget. And so one of the things that you really want to do, and this goes back to that first individual governance mindset relative to preparation and deep learning, is you want to be ready to make decisions. And so, you have 7 votes on the board, and you want everybody to feel like they are informed enough to actually make these decisions. And so you won't be surprised to see in the first meeting in June the LCAP show up, because that's when it's supposed to, and it's supposed to be approved before the regular budget, which is usually approved later in June. So it's a way to kind of look at the sequence and feel comfortable that you're fulfilling your overall responsibilities, and is a great tool. Questions about the calendar or timing, or I think you probably may have had a workshop already on the Brown Act relative to board meetings. You know that there are open session topics and closed session topics. I think one of the key phrases is that the Brown Act in 3 words is openly and collectively. And so any direction to the superintendent needs to be done openly and collectively. One board member can't say to the superintendent, we think all the schools should be painted red, white, and blue, and so it would, for your case, it would take 4 trustees out of 7 to make a decision to direct the superintendent. So, or to make a decision. So remember also, Robert's Rules of Order is not necessarily order meaning versus chaos. Robert's Rules of Order is a process for decision making that allows you to reach a decision in a constructive fashion through motions and amendments. It protects, as I mentioned before, the rights of an individual and his or her opinion and his or her ability to vote as they feel that they need to vote. And so the Brown Act, decision-making, planning, making decisions, all kind of tied together. So do any of you newer trustees or anyone have any questions about the calendar before we move on? Would you help me again?
Sure.
I'll give you extra points.
Thank you.
Okay, so what's going around the table now, we're not going to take time to go through it, but again, back to the effective governance system. Remember the first 3 components: individual, transitional collaborative partnerships, and team. What a governance handbook does is it puts in writing agreements for you to fulfill those 3 components. So you can see that there are really 3 tools available to you. There's the ability of having a governance handbook, a governance calendar, and the opportunity for board self-evaluation. So those are a way that you can be systems thinkers and also aware of what's ways that you can reach agreements on these topics. So if I let's page through this quickly, just so I want to spend some time on the protocols. But you can see the way this was developed. Was it a year ago? 2 years ago? Okay, so it'd be 3 years ago then. 2 years ago. So this was drafted by the board at that time. And so at some point, the board should schedule a time to go through this. It could be a workshop or whatever. You may want to have a board subcommittee look at it first and save everybody some time. But if we look at just page 1, has the current mission statement. And then we'll just page through page 2, talks about unity of purpose. 3, roles and responsibilities. 4, governance keep culture. Governance norms. Remember we talked about norms and protocols being a part of the effective governance system. Page 4 has norms. And now there's really an extensive pages 5, 6, 7 and 8 are what's called protocols. So those are agreements that the board and the superintendent have about certain issues. What's a good one to yeah. Okay, so this is we'll even enlarge the font size for draft at the top. It's even bigger than that size. So consider this total draft. You're not bound by a previous board, but they've done a lot of work when you look at the protocols. And I think, let's look at, let's see. Let's look at number 12 on page 7, because this is superintendent trustee communications. So we'll look for your comments too on this, Michelle. So trustees use their judgment in keeping the superintendent informed. Superintendent shall communicate regularly with two-way communication with the trustees regarding district-related items and concerns according to the trustees' individual agreed-upon preference. Trustees trust the superintendent in exercising judgment and informing the Board of Trustees of issues. This is really a draft. But it's a starting point. So from your perspective, what do you think is the best way for board superintendent, trustee superintendent communications?
So I know none of you like surprises. I don't like surprises either. So I try to, so generally it's, I try to do it through things that need to be done quickly. It is through text. I do it individually so that we don't have a Brown Act issue, because otherwise if you respond, then there's an issue. So I try to be really responsive. I'm not one that's sitting in my office reading emails, and so I let all board know that if they need me right away, that text is the best, and if they need to talk to me, then they can call. A lot of times I'll have to leave what I'm doing to get there, so sometimes I have to do that. So for me personally, text is best, but I try to treat each board member in the preference that they want. So, I have had some, I'm not saying here, but I have in the past had some board that's on a need to know basis, meaning I've actually had boards say, I really don't want all your texts. And I've said, okay. But generally I believe that if one knows, the majority knows. We do our weekly communication. That's from all assistant soups. And so that's a way of both ensuring they have celebrations, knowing when things are happening. And I try to be as 24/7 as possible. So I hope that I'm always seen as being responsive, and I don't, even if I'm on a break or whatever, I prefer to know. So I know some of my staff used to be like, well, we didn't want to tell you on the weekend because we didn't want to ruin your weekend. And it was like, no, I need to know right now. I don't tell them, don't wait to tell me on Monday. Don't wait to tell me till the next day. Like for me, the sooner I know, the better. And I then use that premise with the rest of the board. I generally do always have first initial communication with the president and vice president, and then clerk, and then the trustee area, and then the rest of the board. But that's generally within a 2-minute process, because I'm just literally cutting and pasting. But I do obviously have agenda setting and other things with board leadership, and so there is some additional conversation that happens with board leadership just because of the creation of the agenda and the positions and roles in which they hold. But our president and vice president and clerk are wanting a governance of 7, and so we try to be transparent with all.
Can you describe a little about the leadership team in terms of what their responsibilities and the rest of the board?
You mean the principals and all that?
No,
Or board leadership?
Yeah, board leadership.
Yeah, so board leadership, we have agenda setting, and so we meet to discuss the agenda. We also meet in different ways just to ensure that we're prepared for these type of meetings, for example. And so kind of similar to any leadership group, they're kind of the steering committee, so to speak, of the board, right? So they give perspective on what we should be doing. So for example, that group was the group that had the communication with CSBA to determine, okay, we're going to do this good beginnings. We're going to do the superintendent evaluation a little bit different than we did the previous year. And so, I think we try to work collaboratively, the four of us together as leadership, but then again, how do we help then involve the rest of the board so that we're a team of 8?
Great. Any questions or comments?
I don't know if President Stevens, you want to add on any, or are you good with what I said?
So I would just say ditto to everything you said, but it really is about, so we continue to have this word about this unity word, right? But unity isn't just a word, it's about what we do and how do we set the groundwork and making sure that when we do have new board members, they're actually trained and ready and have the skills and tools to be able to lead the work. And I think that comes out of the conversations that we have, not just as board leadership, but as individual trustees also connecting to the other board members so that they know that's happening too. If there's questions, comments, or concerns, they know that they have the opportunity to do that. But I would just say ditto to everything we do, try to be as transparent as possible. But unity is about making sure that people have the knowledge to do the work that we're actually elected to do.
Very good. Other comments or questions before we move on? All right. We're ready to look ahead. March 1st has been designated as the closed session workshop. There is in your folder a page that shows suggested sequence for evaluation of the superintendent. And so basically this, you're basically following this sequence. And so, congratulations to the superintendent for really connecting the LCAP and the objectives for students as part of her evaluation. That's not necessarily a practice that's done across the state, but it's very encouraged because they have found out that one of the factors that influences student achievement from a research standpoint is that student outcomes are part of a superintendent's evaluation. You wouldn't, that kind of makes sense, but they did have shown that to be the case with the research. So what will happen at the March meeting, which will be closed session, is that the superintendent will provide a self-evaluation based on all the objectives that are in her evaluation, and then give the board an opportunity to talk about that. And then we would look ahead to July to have the board have another self-evaluation by the superintendent. The board completes the evaluation form. The board president collects the information, creates a summary, provided to the superintendent, and then there's a conversation around that. So the idea is to really, it's a great process that you are tying the superintendent's evaluation into the goals and objectives that you have for the district through the LCAP. So do you want to add to that, given your perspective?
Sure. So one of the things that I try to do is hold people accountable, and so I do try to publicly hold myself accountable as well. So in March 1st, we'll be going over the 5 goals. So we have set 5 goals for us. If you look at it, they are all directly linked to student achievement or to goals within the district, which is why I asked to have the special board meeting, which we just approved at the last board meeting in July, because I don't have this data before that time. So the first goal is around graduation rates. So we all know that, so I I won't preempt myself from March 1st for time, but we'll be talking about the goal 1 is around graduation rates, goal 2 is around literacy rates, goal 3 around chronic absenteeism, goal 4 is around equity, which has multiple facets, including reclassification, the equity audit, Black Student Thrives Success Plan, and expansion and broadening of our CTE programs. And then number 5 is around relationships with the board and community. So it's around my site visits, conversations with the superintendent, one-on-ones with you all, board orientation, my superintendent student advisory, and all the subcommittees. And so what I'll be doing on March 1st is giving a preliminary of where we're at with all those indicators. And then on July 1st will be generally it's about 90 minutes, 75, 90 minute presentation. I do, it's not required, but I've always done it my entire superintendency career. I then make that presentation that I present to you in closed session available for staff to see when you do my contract in August, which has to occur at a regularly scheduled board meeting. And so I do that to hold myself accountable to the work that we're saying that we're doing for children.
Great. Thank you. All right, so that's looking ahead. We have 3 things to do before we close today. One is I want just to make a trip around the tables again and have you share your kind of impressions for today and any comments you want to make relative to either appreciations or recommendations. And we're actually going to call on the member of the public also to share his observations before at the end. So I'll put him on the spot right off the bat. Is he ready, do you think? Oh. You want to go first again? No. Okay. Donald, why don't you go first? We'll go this way.
Sure. Thank you, Bob. This is I really love these meetings, especially when new board members come in, so that we're all on the same page. I think just in my own experience in the last 2 years, I'm just looking really forward to getting better since the pandemic.
Great. Thanks, Donald. Ethan?
So I think these are just opportunities for us to kind of build rapport and set the foundation with the new members coming on. I think I said it a little while ago, like making sure you all have the tools to be successful in the roles that you're elected in. And I think we talked a lot about unity. It's like that's the word that continues to stay with me, and it's we have to be unified in the work that we do. But I think skills and communication are the way that we build that, right? We're individuals coming to a table to do big work. It's no easy feat. There will be times where we don't agree, right? But disagreements, that does not mean that we don't like each other. That means that we wake up tomorrow and we come back and we yet do the same work again, right? Because there's lessons around what we do here at the district. And I want to make sure that our superintendent is successful, because that's part of the role that we pick up, right? Our role is to make sure that whatever happens at the district, we stand behind it 100%, good, bad, or indifferent. But our role is to make sure that Stockton Unified moves forward no matter what at the end of the day. So excited about what's taking place here. I'm excited that we're able to come to the table and grapple with things, right? Some things are new. Some of us have been around just for a little bit. But I'm looking forward to great things coming out of Stockton Unified, and I just want us to keep that optimism. Days will get tough for us, but just know that you have a partner here at the board that wants to see you all succeed as well. So kudos to everyone for giving up their Sunday morning to be here.
Great. Thank you. Sophia.
Okay, what more can I say? Kind of hit the nail on the head with everything.
A little closer.
Oh, what more can I say is what I'm saying, because I think I'm most encouraged. I'm hearing a lot of the same themes come up for the new and for us. We're not so new, right? We're not going to say old, because we're still feeling new in some respect as well. And especially as we're building a relationship together, I'm really encouraged what I'm hearing. Your why, I think, is something that's kind of going back in my mind if I'm trying to reflect on just our brief couple of hours here today. Like President Stevens said, some of the conversations we have and decisions we make will be challenging, but what's helped me is to come back to the why. And again, just looking at your whys, that's encouraging me. I know a lot of this was overwhelming for me when I first started too. There's a whole calendar we just yeah, I know. A whole calendar we looked at, like, how are we going to do this? But it's together. It's together. We can't do it all alone. We have to do this together as a whole team. So that's kind of what I'm reflecting on.
Okay, great. Priest?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Nobody really tells you when you first become a board member, it's like drinking water from a fire hose. So you're trying to take all this information and decipher this information and figure out how to put this information, you know, back out to make sense to everyone. So it's a great opportunity for us to come together and collaborate, because we don't really get the opportunity that often between schedules, lives, and all those great things. But just to be able to pick each other's mind, and that kind of helps you build a rapport and relationship with each other to kind of understand each other's perspectives and what's really important to us.
Great, thank you. Frank?
Yes, this is, I'll be honest, kind of overwhelming, the whole process. It's new to me. I didn't come from a teaching background or any kind of, you know, anything that would pertain to being a board member, but I was elected, and I'm glad that I have, you know, fellow board members that are willing to, you know, help out and guide me through this. I mean, I know I'd ask a lot of dumb questions sometimes, but if you don't ask, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so any and all training that I'm getting, it's like, I'm glad to be getting it, and think I'm getting it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
little by little. So I just hope to be able to do the best that I can, because like you guys said, that we were elected to do this by our, you know, communities, and I want to do the best that I can.
Great. Thanks, Frank. Isabel?
I am just enjoying any opportunity that I have to be with all of you together in one room, and hearing about your whys. I know Shauna's why, because we went through the whole campaign process together, but I was unsure of Frank's why and your whys. And hearing that today helps me understand a little bit more about you and why you're here with us. And overall, the unity in what we do together means so much to our community and those that we're serving. So it is important for us to be synced and in unity. And I love that we can make our decisions and understand that we're not all going to agree all the time, but that we still respect each other and move past it and go back to the main point of the process of why we're here. So any opportunity to learn and train and connect with all of you is what I enjoy the most out of all of this.
Great. Michelle?
So I just have a deep appreciation for all of you. I'm so heartened that when we look at our whys, it's all centered around our students, our families, our community, our staff. And so just know that I'm here for you just as I'm here for the students. And so please continue to reach out. And I think continuing to have times where we can break bread together, or we can have conversations to just reinforce and encourage each other to continue to do the good work, because it's hard work, but it's the heart work, right? So thank you.
Nice.
Bob started today's training with the Lighthouse study, and he made a recommendation. The reason why it's called the Lighthouse study is because board members in a school district are seen or are the lighthouse. We protect, we communicate with the community, we're community leaders, we're elected officials, but our role is to shine that light so that the district can miss the rocks. I highly recommend that you read the Lighthouse study every so often because each time you read it, as you go on this journey, you're going to learn more about the work that you're doing. You're going to recognize the importance of this governance team. The superintendent she's the superintendent, she's the board secretary, and she's a member of the governance team. She has more information about how all this works than we'll all ever have combined. So your superintendent is your ally. Whether you agree or disagree or you want to see something happen, she is your ally. Just like each of these board members are your allies in getting the work done for the entirety of the district. I'm really encouraged by, again, the reasons, the homegrown, the educator. There's never a dumb question. The only dumb question is the one you don't ask. I will tell you, when I first got to the board, my hand was always up. What's this acronym? What's this acronym? What's this acronym? Because I wanted to do the job well. And your board president has challenged you. Do the work. You've been elected. Do the research. Do the reading. Come prepared. Because if you do that, what you guys all want to see happen for all 34,107 students is going to happen.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Well, we have one activity that I'm required to require you to do, and that is on the left side behind the agenda is a QR code. It'll connect you to SurveyMonkey, and there's only about 5 or 6 questions, I think, so it would take 3 or 4 minutes to do, but it's really important that we collect the information from all of you. So I'm not going to say anything for 3 or 4 minutes, give you a chance to fill it out, and then I do have some closing comments, and then we can adjourn by 11. You did very well. Yeah, I know, nice big printing. Looks like everybody's just about done. Let's just let it finish. another minute or so. You okay, Frank? You about done? Are you about done? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I just, no. I just, I didn't want to interrupt you. Oh, yeah, okay. Just in closing, before I turn things over back to our president, Michael Fullen has written a book called Leading in a Culture of Change. And he says there are 3 characteristics that these leaders will need to have. One is a sense of hope, one is the energy, and one is enthusiasm. Hope is not a false idealism. It's a belief that, yes, together we can get this done. Energy comes from a faith in something. It could be religious faith or belief in children and public education. Enthusiasm comes from the interactions we have with the people around us, and it builds that spirit that is really important. So hope, energy, and enthusiasm, carry it forward, and I'll see you in a month. That's great. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Bob and team, and to the leadership team for making this happen as well. So we're looking forward to some great things, and I would like to close this out. Moving on to item 3.1, I would like to adjourn the board meeting at 11 a.m. Enjoy your weekend.